What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Infamous Ghost Money back with another video, and this time we got a special guest. So I'm gonna need y'all to be respectful and show a lot of respect to this man who took out the time to help me out in dissecting this case. In this video, we're gonna be talking about a mortgage fraud scheme involving an individual that some of you may know, some of you may not know. But the way he did this scheme, I have to say, it was pretty complex. So I had to reach out to a professional who fully understands these type scams, you know what I'm saying? And the person that's going to be supporting me on this video is Mr. Matthew Cox. If you haven't heard about him, I don't know where you've been. This man has so much knowledge around fraud and different scams. And if I must say respectfully, he used to come from that life and now he's turned over a different leaf and he's doing content on YouTube and talking about a lot of these different schemes. But with that being said, enough small talk. Let's get right into the information. All right, y'all. So today we're going to be talking about a recent case that came up late September involving a hip hop artist known as Kafani. To be honest, I never heard of this dude. I tried to listen to like one or two of his songs. It wasn't my thing, so I kind of turned that off ASAP. But with that being said, this man is a all the way fraudster, and I say that respectfully. His resume speaks for itself, and you soon will see. But this gentleman's method of doing fraud involved mortgage fraud. The ghost knows about a lot of different methods, but for this, I had to reach out to Mr. Matthew Cox because, if I'm not mistaken, Matthew, that was your thing, right?
Absolutely.
All right, all right. So if you want to just tell to the people who don't know who you want to explain to them why you are a qualified individual to speak on mortgage fraud?
Basically, I owned a mortgage company for about 5 years. I was a mortgage broker for about 6 years, and I was on the run for 3 years. Plus, I committed fraud in Tampa. So basically, 10 years I was committing mortgage fraud. I owned a brokerage business. I was a FHA approved lender and a VA approved lender, subprime broker, and a conventional broker. And I committed roughly 55 mil. Well, my company committed roughly about 40 to 55 million dollars in fraud. I personally committed $15 million in mortgage fraud as a fraudster or a con man, whatever you want to call it. And I was number one on the Secret Service's most wanted list. I was eventually captured. I was given 26 years. I served 13 years for fraud, for bank fraud. And so that's basically that is essentially what I guess my my qualifications are, that I know underwriting guidelines and I know mortgage scams inside and out. In fact, one of the ways that I reduced my federal sentence was I wrote what's called an ethics and fraud course for the U.S. government that is used to teach ethics and fraud to the nation's loan officers and mortgage officers under the Dodd-Frank Act.
So I ain't even got to say anything after that,
extensive.
y'all.
Yeah, I have extensive experience in bank fraud, mortgage fraud.
Let's get into this case, y'all. All right, so who is Kafani? Like I said, he's a rapper. Bling, bling, bling. Kafani is a rapper out of Oakland, I believe. And please, y'all, don't come at me if I say the wrong thing. I am not a hip hop channel, but he's out of Oakland. And based on his Wikipedia page, his name is Amir Rashad, but in the paperwork, his name is Mark Hicks. His stage name is Kafani, and he's an American rapper from the Funk Town section of San Antonio, California. San Antonio, Oakland, California. He graduated from Oakland High School in 1998, where he played varsity basketball, and he eventually signed to Fizz Nation, a subdivision of the late Mac Dre's label Fizz Entertainment. So a little bit more about Kafani. On September 28, 2013, Kafani was shot several times in East Oakland after shooting a music video. He was permanently paralyzed from the waist down. And on October 18, 2013, he spoke for the first time since the shooting, in which he said, "Took 5 shots. They say I might not walk again, but I'm on God's team, so I know I'm going to win." Holla back. Kafani has launched a crowdfunding campaign with a concert on September 12, 2014 to acquire an assistive robotic device to walk again. And it almost seems as if he got it, because I found these pictures here. Unfortunately, this gentleman, he got shot 5 times, could never walk again. And this happened in 2013. I think that's when his hip hop career was actually doing well. But it does seem as if he got those legs, because look at that. That's pretty interesting. Mark Hicks' criminal history dates back to his juvenile days. At 20, he was arrested for bank fraud and sentenced to 6 months in jail. Less than 2 years later, he was arrested, convicted, and sentenced to 32 months in prison for get credit, use others' IDs. He was on probation for that offense when he was again arrested, this time for false information to law enforcement. 1 year later, in 2008, he was arrested yet again, this time charged with being a violent felon in possession of a firearm. None of the arrests or convictions deterred Hicks, and from 2008 through November 2012, Hicks participated in a complex multi-defendant scheme to defraud MoneyGram and USAA federal savings, employing the same modus operandi he would use in this case in the USAA and MoneyGram fraud. Hicks and his co-conspirators obtained personal identifying information of his victims, made telephone calls to the bank impersonating them, and working with co-conspirators, obtained fraudulent proceeds from the victims. He was arrested in 2013, and despite this arrest, Hicks continued to engage in sophisticated fraud schemes. In 2014, he was arrested and charged with grand theft and felon addict possessing a firearm. And according to the PSR, Hicks would hack into the Federal Express package tracking system and was rerouting packages where he had co-conspirators pick them up. He was observed picking up one of these packages from his co-conspirators in April 2015. The Honorable Phyllis J. Hamilton sentenced Hicks to 39 months in prison for the MoneyGram and USAA fraud and ordered restitution of $258,400. And in 2016, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison on state charges. So a lot. This man has done a lot of fraud, in and out of prison for doing fraud, and his modus operandi seems to be using people's identities to then apply for some sort of credit and the different variations of cashing out.
Right. So to me, in this one, the quick version is he's obtaining people's information. Sounds like he's calling from a cell phone, but he's probably using like the spoof app. Mm-hmm. So the bank thinks they're calling from their home phone number, and he's then applying online and getting some kind of getting them to issue him a check. And then when they overnight the check, he's having the checks, which the bank thinks they're overnighting the check to this person's home address, when in fact he's having those checks rerouted to another address so they get a hold of the checks. And then they can deposit those checks. Because it doesn't say that he's acquiring identification in those people's names. He's got their information. So he's just calling on the phone saying, yeah, my name is this, my date of birth is this, my social security number. I work here, and I'm applying for a $5,000 cash or a $5,000, personal loan or a payday loan of some type. And he's saying USAA. So he's actually probably getting, it looks like he's getting a personal loan. Could be 5,000. They go up to I think you can get them like $25,000 for a personal loan. And he probably is providing some kind of a pay stub to verify their 2 weeks, or sometimes they ask for like a month's worth of pay stubs. So you provide them 2 pay stubs. And, and they'll lend you, most banks will lend you double whatever you make in a month, up to like $25,000. When I used to do this, it was up to $15,000. I think they go up to 25 now. But anyway, so then he's getting the checks sent, send it to my house, which they verify on their, when they pull the credit, they see this is his home address. So they don't have a problem overnighting it to that address. And then he somehow or another has it rerouted. Not sure how he's rerouting. They're saying he hacked in.
Yeah,
hacked in could have simply been him just simply having the password to their account and having it rerouted.
Yeah, and
Like,
also I would imagine during this time, if you had like the address and just basic information on someone and the routing, and I'm saying the routing, the tracking number, you
you
probably
probably
could go in there and just switch it up if you had that
right,
information.
right.
Yep.
So it's not like that they act like it's hacking, like he hacked in and he knew
Yeah.
how to rewrite the code and everything. He probably just made a phone call or went online and
Yep.
had the correct information.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's what I think he probably got in trouble here for.
Hmm. Hmm. All right. So with that, his most recent scheme that he has had to spend some time in for. So Bay Area rapper Mark Kafani Hicks and two co-conspirators sentenced to prison for multi-million-dollar mortgage fraud scheme. The Bay Area rapper Mark Kafani Hicks, aka Amir Rashad, was sentenced to 87 months in prison for his role in orchestrating a complex loan fraud, and identity theft conspiracy. So loan fraud, identity theft, a lot of what he did in the past, you know what I'm saying? He was a one-trick pony in different variations. So I guess he was riding different ponies.
Yeah, well, he's upped his game. When he moved to the mortgages, it's big money.
Yeah, yeah. But still, pause. I said he was, yeah, whatever. Anyway, these are the individuals involved in the case, and he has an interest because he goes by Amir Rashad, but then Mark Hicks, and of course Kafani, his stage name. But his name is Mark the Django Hicks. Then we also have Tyrone Alexander Jones, Suzanne Areola Martin, and I had to laugh when I read that name a couple times. Christopher Poole, DeMarcus Hicks, aka Smurf, Dion Cias, Donnie Costello, and Leaf Scrochard. And a whole list of violations there. I am not going to go through all of that, but clearly they was going in, all the way in. This was the conspiracy, beginning at a date unknown to the grand jury, but no later than in or about May 2018, and continuing through a date unknown, but at least in or about February 2020. The way they write these things is just like,
I know.
You could have wrote this in a way that was much more simpler.
But it's a nightmare to read.
Oh, it really is. And that's why you subscribe to my channel, because I make it interesting for you. There you go. But anyway, their scheme had several layers in it. All right. So the objective of the scheme was to defraud were, among other objectives, first, to obtain stolen personal identifying information from identity theft victims. B, to use that stolen information to open bank accounts in the identity theft victims' names. From there, they would establish emails using the identity theft victims' names to use the identity theft victims' identities to obtain refinance loans using the identity theft victims' property as collateral. Then they would direct the loan companies to wire the loan proceeds to the bank accounts that they opened earlier in the victim's name, and they would cash out or extract the money from ATM withdrawals, doing store purchases for high-end goods, and they also purchased a ton of gold. And then they would resell a lot of that gold for cash for personal use. So several layers to this scheme. But Matt, please correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like it was just getting their hands on people's information, opening bank accounts, establishing emails and phone numbers. Then they apply for these refinance loans, get the money sent to their account, and then they have these various ways of cashing out, which included ATM withdrawals, store purchases, and purchasing gold.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely. What I'm wondering about is how, the hardest thing is unfortunately, this is, this wouldn't be hard at all for me, any of this. But the hardest part for a typical person, other than if they had access to the information, right, which there's various ways to get that information. The problem is opening the bank account, right? Like now, maybe if you have the person's credit card you have the person's a copy of their driver's license, and you have their date of birth and their social security number, and then you could probably open it up online. But if you get a large transaction on a new bank account, then they'll usually freeze that bank account a lot of times. But I also noticed that, they're getting where are they getting the ATM card mailed to pull the money out online. Where are they're either getting those ATM cards rerouted, or, and I know a guy that used to do this. He used to get like he'd apply for a credit. He'd use a spoof app, get your information, apply for a credit card, and then get like a 30, 40, 150 or a $50,000 credit card, and they would overnight it to you. He would go and sit in front of the person's house and wait for the UPS guy or FedEx guy to show up, and then he'd get out of he had a nice car, like a brand new Lincoln. He would, and this is like $1 million house, $2 million house. He'd park in front, and when the UPS guy pulled up, he'd get out of his car and start walking towards the house, like he was about to walk in his house. And so, keep in mind that the actual owner of the house is at work. And so he'd start walking, he'd turn around and see the UPS driver. He'd be like, "Oh, hey, are you looking for, John Smith?" And he'd go, "Yeah, are you Mr. Smith?" "Yes, I am." He'd go, "Okay, here, I have a delivery." He'd give him the card. And then he'd open it up, and the UPS guy would get in the truck, drive off. He'd get in his car, drive off, and he'd call with the spoof app, and he'd activate the card, and he'd start using the card. So these guys, but opening the bank account is probably the hardest thing, because you're going to need a real ID unless you want to do it online. I guess you can open them online. But if you start getting large wires sent to that account, a brand new account, it's going to be a problem.
And that's what I love about my channel, because a lot of these cases and a lot of what you said, you're already catching on to where they fucked up.
Yeah, it's just brilliant. It's just
you're already catching on to where they fucked up.
You put all this thought into it, and the problem is, I think you get cocky.
Absolutely.
And these guys make mistakes, and it's like they don't run, especially when they don't run it as a business. Like they don't want to invest $1 into their scam. That always upsets me. It's like, you don't want to put $1 into your scam. You're about to make $500,000, but you don't want to spend $2,000.
But how am I gonna get icy though, Matt? I got to get the bling bling in the nice car and post it on Instagram. What are you talking about?
You have $498,000 left.
Chill. No.
So this looks to me like, they're opening accounts. Maybe they're seasoning those accounts for a certain period of time, or maybe they're getting a fake ID, but I don't see anything about fake IDs.
Without jumping too far, I do want to kind of challenge one thing you said. It's very easy to open bank accounts with fake ID, because social engineering, like even what your boy did, that's just like flat out social engineering and just someone thinking, "Oh, this is all right." And if you think about a lot of these employees, I don't know if you're familiar with that Wells Fargo scandal, but a lot of these banking employees, apparently they get paid for every account that they open, and they have sales quotas and different things like that. So if someone comes in and they're telling you, "I'm going to open an account and it's going to soon have $300,000 wired into it," that's dollar signs for whoever's servicing that person, and they'll turn a blind eye. But they would put extra scrutiny on someone else who's coming in, like a teenager or a younger person, for example, just opening a basic account. They would not trust that person more than the person who's coming in and appears a certain way and may, come off a certain way, and they will believe it and turn a blind eye to a lot of things. And that's a lot of what happened in this case. It's just a lot of people who didn't catch clear red flags, or they decided to just not pay attention to it.
Right. Okay. Well, let me give you an example. When I say, look, opening it with a fake ID is easy. You're right. How did you get the fake ID?
Well, we can't talk about that on this video.
I'm saying that's the problem. Getting the fake ID, then you have to go and have all their information and a fake ID that will pass muster. That's not hard. The bank employees don't give a shit. They're not checking. Opening that account. But here's the other thing is that that bank employee isn't seeing the wires that come in. This is an automatic algorithm that detects that this account was opened 3 weeks ago, and they just got a $250,000 wire sent in from another bank. Absolutely. It will shut it off
automatically.
A lot of times they'll shut it off. And I know this because I've had bank accounts where I had a real ID. I opened the bank account, and then the bank account had been open for 6 or 8 months. But I was putting in like 3,000, 5,000, 20,000, 10,000. Then one day I got a $250,000 wire, and they immediately closed off my bank and said, "You have to come in the bank." Now, because it was me, And because I had a real ID in someone else's name issued by the DMV, I actually went into the bank. Now, my girlfriend was freaking out. Oh my God, don't. I'm like, you don't understand. This person is a homeless person that lives under a bridge. He didn't complain. I have credit cards in his name. I have a car in his name. Like all of this, there's nothing. There's no way they're going to catch me. And I actually went into the bank and they said, and I asked them what happened. What's the problem? You shut off my account or you froze my account. They said, well, look, the problem is it's less than a year. You just had $250,000 wired into your account. Like money's going in your account, you're draining it. Money's going in your account, you're draining it. And I'm like, no. And I explained I owned a development company and this, and we had just that was a loan from a refinance and blah, blah. And of course they turned it right back on. They apologized, but they only did that because I was willing to walk in the bank. I'm pretty sure these guys would be terrified to walk into a bank, especially if they had a fake ID. They had a real ID from the DMV, but these guys have real victims. My victim was a homeless person that I knew wasn't going to complain. These guys are stealing like doctors' fucking driver's licenses and cops and CPAs and like, insurance salesmen. Like their fear is if the bank suddenly said, you need to come in the bank, they'd be like, oh, Jesus, he might have figured it out. I'm not going. That's why I'm saying the bank is a crucial issue for these guys. Because everything else they did, although it takes brains, most people could figure that out. The ballsy part is, how did you open the bank account? Did you have a real ID? Did you have a fake ID? Did you do it online? But I also see that, obviously they're draining the accounts using, ATM card. Like where was that card mailed?
Matt, we're going to get to that point, man. You're like,
go ahead.
Jumping the gun. I like to build this. All right, so there were 9 victims that Kafani and his crew victimized, if that's the right word, in this scheme. And all of them came out of California. And a key theme that I noticed with a lot of these individuals, they were elderly. So they were elderly or had different people taking care of their affairs. So, they weren't all the way caught up in their finances. But these are all of the 9 victims here. And it's funny, even one of these victims lived on like the same block as him, apparently, which is pretty interesting. So how did they do it? How did they do their thing? Let's find out. This is one of the first victims that Mr. Mark Hicks orchestrated this scheme on. So on May 14th, 2018, between May 14, 2018 and June 2018, Hicks orchestrated a scheme to defraud by using the personal information of victim 1 to obtain a refinance loan. Specifically, on May 14, Hicks contacted individual 1, an employee at Selective Motors. This is very important. Shortly thereafter, individual 1 asked Nowcom to run a full credit history report for identity theft victim 1 without the victim's authorization, obviously. Within days of the credit report run, victim 1's personal identifying information was used to set up a fraudulent Google email address and to apply for an unauthorized American Express card. And on or about June 18, 2018, Hicks, falsely purporting to be identity theft victim 1, applied for a $785,000 refinance loan using as collateral the identity theft victim's property in Palo Alto, California. So with this, the thing that I found very interesting, and the reason I put this here is because he used this same method, and this is just a concise way of breaking down how he did his thing. After he got the information, it seems as if he had an insider that worked for a car dealership, Selective Motors, and this individual that worked at the car dealership had the ability to get people's credit report through the Nowcom system. And when I looked that up, you probably know more about that than me, but it seems to be some kind of system that's around pulling credit history and things of that nature. And like I told you when I reached out to you, I feel the main reason they were doing that was to see what kind of assets that these people had, specifically real estate. And from that credit report, you'll see what their mortgage balance is, or if they had a mortgage in the past, and you can easily look up the property values of someone's property, and from there get an idea of what the equity is in that person's property, which allowed them to now go for the refinance loans. What you think about that, Matt?
No, I mean that's exactly, I'm not saying it's exactly what happened, but it sure sounds like it's exactly what happened. It's funny. The other case I was telling you about, the guy actually would he would like drive through the neighborhood and find houses, and look, and then he would use LexisNexis and order LexisNexis reports and slowly kind of dismantle these people's entire lives until he'd eventually figure out get their social security numbers. Like, he was amazing. But these guys were being given all the hard stuff to get. He was being handed all of that stuff, and then he was going out, pulling their credit and finding out, hey, these people lived in this house for 15 years. That means that half the mortgage is paid off. And that house, close to half, let's say, and the house has been increasing by 3% a year for the past, 15 years. So this $1 million house that they live in, they now owe roughly $600,000, and that house is worth $1.5 million. So there's easily $750,000 worth of, or $785,000 worth of equity there. So they go online, they apply, they say, hey, they know how long the guy's been on his job, because when you pull your credit report, and that's what that system does, it pulls a tri-merge, it pulls all 3 credit reports and lays them all out. So they know the house, the address, they know how long the guy's been on his job, they know all that. And how hard is it, even just if you called? They could just call and say, hey, call his job. Hey, is he here? Or is he there? I'm sorry, I'm calling to verify his loan application. How long has he been there? And the receptionist will tell you, 11 years. So, I mean, I think all of that's very easy. The only problem when they apply for that $785,000 refi, they're going to ask for, most likely they're going to ask for his last 2 years W-2s and pay stubs. Now, that's not hard to do. You can generate those very easy using QuickBooks or TurboTax or any of those software programs that are used to run businesses, and of course do your taxes too, but they also run business programs. You can easily print out W-2s and pay stubs using those programs. So once they get those, they don't even have to be accurate. They just have to be enough money to cover your ability to make that payment. That's not hard to figure out. So then they have to mail that to the bank, and all of this is done over the computer. These people don't even have to walk into the bank. It doesn't sound, most of that's done over the computer. You're not even walking in until the closing. In some states, you can do mobile closings. You can meet a notary anywhere, at a Barnes and Nobles, at a Starbucks coffee shop. You can meet them anywhere to sign those documents. You don't even have to go into the bank or the title company.
And I think that's what they played on, because if you think about it, you're leaving a random notary, and they're supposed to be thorough in verifying who they're dealing with. But at the end of the day, you're working with a random notary. You're probably getting paid like $50, or I don't know how much they get paid to do these things, to verify all these documents, and then it's just sent off. So, a lot of room. Once again, social engineering. It's like a common thing. All these things is different variations. This is another victim, and I put this here just so you can see it's the same method. Between August 7th, 2018 and August 21st, 2018, Hicks, once again, using the identifying information, this time of victim 3, to obtain a loan. Same method. He had this insider get the credit report. Then from there, they use that information to open bank accounts. And then on August 21st, they received a wire of $713,000 and some change. So you see, that was less than, what is that, like 3 weeks? That's efficient. First off, because I know when I was dealing with mortgages, it seemed like the average turnaround time for a refi, HELOC, whatever, depending on how fast everyone got the documents over, sometimes it'd be like 2 months. These guys are efficient. This is crazy. But there you go. You see, that fast, $700,000, just like that. 1, 2, 3.
Oh wait, this is How long did it take them to do this?
From August 7th to August 21st. They opened the account on August 9th, and they received the wire on the 21st.
You're right. That is fast.
And that shows, because I know a lot of these brokers, they get paid. Obviously, they get paid off of these loans that they give out. So I know when I worked with this mortgage brokerage, you really, like, the big thing that the guy taught me was you always want to make sure that the individual, before you even get the process started, they have all their docs ready. So you could just submit everything. You got everything you need. So if any hiccups come up, you already have whatever is needed to get it cleared.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you don't want to have a whole bunch of stipulations. Mm-hmm. You want to have everything. You want a perfect package going in. It's almost like these guys. But then again, honestly, these houses are probably worth obviously in the millions.
Yeah, it's in California, I can imagine.
It's funny because the LTV, the loan to value on these homes is probably so low that the bank is desperate to close as quick as possible. And these people aren't complaining. Like if they're getting a 12% interest rate, they're probably not bitching and moaning. What do I do? They're never making a payment. So they're like, yeah, the house is worth $2 million, $3 million, and I only want $700,000, and I don't care what my interest rate. So the bank thinks, yeah, well, if this is great, close this as fast as possible. Not realizing they think they're taking the customer, and the customer's taking them.
Hey, at the end of the day, it's not like they're going out of business. So, 'tis what it is.
Well, listen, right? I guarantee you that you know who really got screwed is Old Republic Title.
Okay, why do you say that?
Because they're the title company.
Talk to me, because I don't really understand the titles and everything. Tell me
they insure against fraud. So you guys were in charge of making sure that the person that showed up is the correct person. The ID matches, and to sign all the documents. So a lot of times in my own case, let's say I stole a $200,000 from Bank of America. A lot of times Bank of America made a claim against the title company. The title company paid them back. Now, sometimes they would put up a fight and they'd split it. So Bank of America would get hit with $100,000, and then the title company would get hit with $100,000.
Interesting.
But in this case, they may just cut those checks.
And that's why I wanted you on this. Those little areas. That's so. All right, good to know. Good to know. All right, so this is where we got how they did their thing. Boom, bada bang. Get the information. Open the account. Refi. Get the money. But we're going to dive into how they did their thing a little bit more. And a lot of what they did required using people to go in and sign off on these documents as part of the closing for the loans they applied for. And that's where they did a lot of impersonations. And for example, on May 1st, and with this part here, this shows how after someone already got scammed, how they were able to realize, like, hold up, there's a refinance on my property that I have no idea about. So one of the victims received an unexpected bill for $360 from their attorney for services rendered in connection with a loan letter she prepared. Victim 1 had not asked for the attorney to prepare any loan letters. Victim 1 immediately contacted their attorney, and they determined Victim 1 was a victim of identity theft and fraud. So boom. Oh shit, what happened? I did what? Not me. Wasn't me. All right, so according to the victim's attorney, in late October 2018, unbeknownst to the victim, an individual who identified himself as the victim's son contacted the attorney by email from a telephone number to request a copy of his mother's trust. The attorney compiled and gave him a copy of the victim's trust. Based on the investigation, including a review of text messages obtained via a search warrant for a Google account tied to the number, they determined that the phone number was associated with Mr. Hicks and he used it to perpetrate fraud on Victim 1. What I found the most appalling out of all this was that point number 14, that attorney should be fired like ASAP. Like, how do you just have someone call you over the phone and I just felt that the way that they verified or tried to confirm they were speaking with the right person, they should have took a little bit more. But just like that, they called social engineering and got all this information sent over to them. But like you also said, Matt, where a lot of these guys screwed up, he was using a Google phone number that was associated with his real identity. So it doesn't seem as if he took the time to even try and cover that part up.
No. Well, you know what's funny? Here's the other question you should you want to ask yourself is this: why is it that they contacted this person's attorney to get a copy of their trust? So how do they know they have a trust? How do they know that they have an attorney? And I know the answer to that, by the way. These people's house, when they pulled the title to the house, obviously, and they found out that the house was in a trust. On the trust, it says who prepared the trust. So they then contacted the attorney for the trust and got the attorney to write a letter saying that they were allowed to place a lien on the title for the trust. So they needed that letter. Why they didn't move on to another victim, like that's guts. To me, this is gutsy. As soon as I saw that, I was like, man, I don't want to get an attorney involved. This attorney might make a phone call. They might call the victim. They may call, like, this guy calls up as his son. The attorney may have said, listen, I can't talk to you about your mother's trust or your father's trust.
That's what
they may have said, before they even called him back or took the phone call, they may have called them and said, listen, your son is on the phone. He wants a copy of the trust. Are you okay with that? It would have been over right there. But they didn't. Just like you said, the attorney, what are you doing? Why would you send him this? Is he the trustee? And if he is the trustee, you've probably spoken with him before.
Exactly. And that's why I said at the start of this whole scheme was successful because there was so many people who were just not doing their job correctly, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Because it's like just social engineering, and it's like at the easiest. And I didn't put all of the parts in it, but he did a lot of fake calls and like changing up his voice and stuff. It's hilarious. But even with that, his first slip up was the phone number. But let's move on. So with this same victim, December 2018, the individual claiming to be the victim's son, which was Hicks, again contacted the attorney by email and said the mother was trying to get a refinance loan. As part of the approval process, the son said the loan broker needed a letter from the attorney's office stating that that his mother was capable of handling her financial affairs.
Oh, did I call it? I didn't even see this, and I knew that's what happened.
And that's why I said, Matt, at the beginning, you were jumping the gun. Like, damn,
nice.
Give your boy a chance. And that's why you're on this.
Oh, wow. I'm impressing myself.
You kind of spoiled the whole video from the first fucking slide. I just want to let you know that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
But let me read through this, and I just want to tell you the part that really was just like, wow. But the mother was capable of handling her financial affairs and understood the loan was a high-cost loan, like you said as well. The number he provided was Hicks' phone number and said he could be reached at that number. The victim's attorney sent an email to the victim's son with the letter that he requested. So just like that. So what stood out to me? You're a whole attorney. You're like a whole attorney, right? And someone calls you saying they need a letter stating their mother is capable of handling their financial affairs. I don't know the exact regulations behind it. I think it's taking advantage of vulnerables or whatever the hell it is. But right there, that's a red flag. That is a huge red flag where they should have been like, hold up, this is a little weird, this letter they're asking me. And then it says for a high cost loan. This attorney was just collecting whatever fee they collect, and I don't think they really were doing their job thorough. And
no,
I don't know,
because
it's a little crazy.
The son is saying he needs a letter saying that I need you to write a letter saying that my mother or whoever is capable of making their own financial decisions for the mortgage broker. Well, here's the thing, like, why didn't this attorney call the victim? Or maybe they knew who the victim was and it's like, oh yeah, I know your mother. Yeah, no, she's perfectly capable, but still, why not make that call?
Yeah, if you're
Like,
able to
you don't know
handle
who
your
this,
own affairs, why
you
didn't
don't know
she
who the
call on her
son
own?
is. First of all, you don't know who the son is. Like,
Crazy.
I know your mother, but I don't know. And she is capable of making her own financial decisions, but I don't know you.
Mm-mm.
Let me call your mother.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if she is capable of making her own financial decisions, then why am I talking to you? But listen, in my case, I can tell you right now, in my case, there were many times when people would see things that were clearly wrong, that they
Mm-hmm.
should have done things, and they just kind of were like, yeah, that makes sense. And they just kept going. It's like, you could have picked up the phone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my viewers, I have a wide uh, variety of viewers. Some seem to be scammers, some interested, but I also have a lot of professionals, fraud professionals who watch my videos. Guys, we got to do something about this. We got to like have a class for these attorneys on how to spot red flags and mortgage fraud, because clearly there's an you know what? Hire Matt.
I wrote a red flags course when I was locked up. Actually,
Guys,
a
hire him.
federal red flags course.
I'm gonna put this on LinkedIn and we'll split whatever you make 50-50. Deal? No, just kidding, just kidding. But I am gonna put it on LinkedIn because like this is ridiculous. All right, let's keep it moving because it gets crazier, Matt. As part of the scheme, Hicks began recruiting co-conspirators with one of the co-defendants, Dioncis Costello, who recruited co-defendants Suzanne Areola Martin and Leaf Crochode, who were both homeless at the time and addicted to heroin and methamphetamine, to impersonate victims and sign and notarize fraudulent loan documents. Areola Martin impersonated victim two's wife. Hicks admits that he obtained a fraudulent driver's license in the name of victim 2 and victim 3, but with Schroeder and Areola Martin's pictures, and using the IDs along with the fraudulent email, Google Voice, and bank account he and others had created, applied for a $250,000 loan in the victim's name. So that's who he used, Matt, to go in and sign these documents.
I was wondering that. How did a bunch of young black guys go in as older, as old people, but apparently it's some of the homeless people.
And there's a lot of cases that I see involving homeless people, and sometimes they're being manipulated in a way where it's clear that they're not aware of what's going on. But these two folks here, they was all the way with the shits because
and
he used them multiple times.
He had to clean them up.
I would hope so.
I mean, they're homeless. He's got to probably take them, get a motel room, clean them up, get them better clothes, like scrub them down and get them presentable. I mean, and then
I would imagine they get all this money, they're gonna just get more drugs. It's like a vicious cycle.
Oh, they're not getting it. They didn't get $250. They got $1,000, $500. I had a guy sign. Listen, I had a guy one time. He signed for probably $300,000 or $400,000 worth of mortgages. I paid him $1,500.
Wow.
Same thing. Fake ID. He was a drug addict. Fake ID. Walked into first closing. He did it for $500. The second one, using a fake ID, knew what he was doing. Second time, he did it for $1,000. He saw the money that I was getting. He saw it. He saw $100,000 minimum of checks going to different people. So the next time he said, "I'm not doing it for $500, bro." I said, "I understand." He goes, "This time, I want $1,000."
Ooh, hey,
whoa,
big shot caller. Hey, moving on up.
I said, "That's excessive," but okay.
Oh boy. All right, let's keep it going because you got to see how he used these individuals. So back to the story. So the same individual now. On December 13th, 2018, a notary was contacted by a mobile notary service, just like you said, Matt.
Oh,
you looking like Kobe in the fourth quarter, man. You can't miss.
I'm so shocked at that. I mean, I like to think I know what I'm doing, obviously, but it's always nice.
This is why I wanted to do this video with you, and it's going great. All right, so boom. So contacted a mobile notary service and asked victim 1 to schedule a document notarization. Once again, the email included Hicks' phone number and an investigator from the ACDAO, I don't know what that is, interviewed the notary, who stated that the first time the notary called this number, it was answered by a female. On the second occasion, it was answered by a male. On December 13th, 2018, Notary One telephoned Hicks' phone number, and the number was once again answered by a male who said he was driving his mother to meet the notary. Later that day, Notary One met with the woman claiming to be the victim and notarized loan documents for her. Notary One stated that she obtained 2 fingerprints from the individual claiming to be the victim for her notary journal and took a photo of the individual's driver's license. This investigator examined the driver's license and identified the picture on it was the individual that he recruited, Miss Suzanne Areola Martin, and the fingerprints from the notary book were submitted. And at the point of when they wrote this paperwork, it was pending, but I can only assume that it ended up being a match.
Yeah.
So there you go, Matt. They're sending this person in, and even though this once again, this notary saw some red flags, they ran with it, and it's clearly a fake ID because it had the picture on it. So either the ID was really good or this notary ain't shit at checking IDs. I don't know. But in my experience, I know a lot of notaries aren't doing things correctly. Like it's crazy. Sometimes you give them a document already signed, like, hey, notarize this. And it's like, are you going to ask for my ID? Oh, yeah. Let me get your ID. This is insane. Wow. Seen it multiple times. But let's keep on moving. This is another occasion where he used these individuals. On March 8th, 2019, a second notary met with a woman claiming to be victim 1 to notarize documents related to a North Coast financial loan. Notary 2's husband went with her. Notary 2 and her husband were interviewed, and they both met the woman identifying herself to be victim 1. So her and her husband both went in and they met this person that they were doing the notaries for. At the time of doing the notaries, Notary 2 said that she was suspicious that victim 1's ID was fake. But her husband told her, you always worrying about stuff. Don't worry about it. Just notarize the documents. I'm trying to go watch the game, lady. Just kidding. But her husband told her not to worry about it, and they notarized the loan documents. Notary 2 and her husband were separately shown double-blind photo lineups, and both identified Areola Martin as the individual who signed the notary documents and showed them the ID for victim 1 and showed the thumbprints, and that was submitted. And but they were unable to find a match on the thumbprints, but the pictures matched. They felt the ID was fake, and clearly it turned out that it clearly was a scam. But once again, an example of how easy it was, despite them feeling nervous and seeing different red flags, they just went with it anyway. And I'm sure there's something in the notary handbook that says you shouldn't have another person that's not related to the transaction in it, like for security purposes or something like that. But her husband's just sitting there like, come on, lady, let's go. But yeah, what do you think of that, Matt?
I wonder why she felt it like it was a fake ID. I wonder what the issue was. But keep in mind that, I don't. It's banks and notaries. It's funny because like it's not like they have like extensive classes on how to spot a fake. And honestly, a lot of the fakes, like there are some shitty websites out there that they provide really crappy fake IDs, but there are some that are amazing. The quality that you can get from a fake ID online is amazing. So, I don't know. I know one time I had somebody go into a bank to sign for a loan, and the person at the title company looked at her ID, and it was her picture on the ID. And she looked at the ID, looked at the picture and said, this picture is not you. It doesn't look like you. But it was her. It was genuinely her picture. But the person refused to give her check. It was like a $200,000 check. Refused to give her the check, said, I'm going to make some phone calls, let her sign the papers, had the check there, but wouldn't give it to her. Said, I'll call you when I look into this a little bit more. And she left. But everything, like, it wasn't that it was a bad fake ID. It was even her picture. She just got suspicious. And And the fact that this woman was suspicious, she probably should have just said, hey, listen, something's wrong. I'm not doing this, and gone somewhere else.
Or what I would think is, like, if you're suspicious, but you don't want to make that call, like, I understand you don't want to offend anybody, maybe ask for additional sources of ID. Like, hey, do you have a secondary, something else? Because
that's even a better idea. Do you have a driver's license? Or no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Do you have a credit card with your name on it? Do you have your social security card? The problem with you had done that with me is I would have been like, yeah, I got 3 credit cards. I've got this. I got my voter's registration. Like, I never went in with one. I always went in. I call it what they call it, pocket litter, where you have other little pieces of litter of documents, other documents that also have. But yeah, I hear you. That's probably a really good idea. You know, sometimes I just don't feel comfortable. So the problem is what, you know, look, what if she said, I don't feel comfortable making that call, and then said, I'm not going to do this, and left. And then they called another notary. The other notary went in, the other notary signed. It wasn't a problem. So next time the mortgage broker or the lender orders a notary, they end up saying, we're not going to use this one woman. She gave us a hard time before. And it was a legit person. It was a legit. So I can see her kind of being like, I'll go ahead and do, well, my husband says it's her. I'm going to sign.
And that extra part that you said, I would imagine a lot of these notaries, because I know people who do notaries, you're not getting paid a lot of money to do these notaries. So it's usually like people who just want to get some extra money. And if you're pairing with this brokerage or whichever company that's sending you out, they don't want you giving their clients a hard time. So it's like, hey, look, they have everything. We verified everything. Do the notary. So just like you said, it's a lot of pressure that they were getting.
Yeah, she's got a driver's license. What are you doing?
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, everyone just wants this loan to close because that's when everyone gets paid.
Correct.
All right. So nice. Okay. So here, just wanted to call out how many times he used these these co-conspirators to pose as different victims. So you got victim 7 and victim 8. They were a couple. And they were sent in, same game plan. Notary stamped the documents, and this time it was for a wire for $300,000 that was sent to a bank account that they recently opened. So that scam went from September 11th to October 1st. Still, and all their things are like within 3 weeks.
Wow! And you know what's funny too? Look at how diverse. You understand? Do you understand that every bank has different procedures? So this guy is hitting banks across the spectrum. It's not like he figured out Bank of America's underwriting guidelines and stuck with screwing over Bank of America. He's hitting Citi. Look, what is this? Was it Citigroup?
CIT. I don't think that's Citi. Yeah. That's
sorry. CIT. And he's hitting. Is this? Oh, Coast to Coast. The other one was some other. Every one of these is a different bank.
And isn't that crazy? Each time he's more or less doing the same play. And like you said, we're getting the accounts opened, sending in these the drug addicts that he was sending in, and these employees were falling for it. And somehow,
$470,000 on that one. 785 on the other one, or over 750, over 700 on the other one. I mean, these aren't little licks, bro.
Yep. And I just want to say,
money.
If you have, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not the most knowledgeable person on fraud. Like, I learn a lot of stuff from just reading and speaking to people like you, but and I mean that in the most respectful way. That kind of sounds but this shows it's very easy to do fraud if you just know what to do. But as easy as it is, as you can see with this, you're gonna slip up somewhere because something's gonna be tied back to you. That's a common theme I notice in a lot of these things. And these folks get greedy because I would imagine if you probably did 1 or 2 licks, he probably no one would know about it. But you keep doing it over and over, and like you said, you get cocky, and nothing lasts forever. And it's like, what the hell were you doing with that? Well, we're gonna find out what the hell he was doing with that money. Let's keep going and going. So how they cashed out? Dollar. Oh wow, I didn't notice that wasn't U.S. currency in the back.
Oh, it's not.
We'll keep that in. That's a blooper. But how did they cash out? Because it's always one thing to do the scheme. You get the money. But just like you were saying at the start of this, like, how were they getting the money? All right, so let's see. Proceeds for the fraud. And this is also where they slipped up a lot. On multiple occasions, Hicks would contact gold dealers by phone, altering his voice and impersonating the victims to order gold bars and gold coins, which he had delivered to a trailer home in Vallejo, California, owned by the sister of DeMarcus Hicks' spouse. So this is someone that he's related to.
That's stupid. But the gold, laundering the money through gold, good idea.
You know, and I'm going to kind of jump the gun a little bit because there's a couple of cases I looked over. Whenever it comes to gold, I noticed the feds or whoever's investigating it, they always do the same thing when it comes to gold shipments. They get in contact with whoever's shipping the gold. They tell them, send something different. They send them something. Then the people call and get all pissed off. And it's like, oh, that's not what I ordered. Da, da. So then they send it back. And I always imagine, why do they do that extra step? And I can only imagine it is to just like confirm for sure that this person is actually doing this. But I noticed they always do that. There's at least 3-4 cases I covered where they did some kind of thing like that. But anyway, so Hicks ordered $964,000 in gold bars and coins through the U.S. Gold Bureau, and at least another $207,000 from Gold Line Inc. Hicks also admits to spending parts of the proceeds from the $241,000 loan from victim 6 via ATM withdrawals and other ATM card purchases. Matt, most of what I cover on my things is check fraud. And a common thing that a lot of check fraudsters just like, why did you do that? ATM withdrawals. Do you not know there's cameras around every single ATM? In the ATM, it's all up in your face.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You should wear a you gotta wear
like a mask.
A mask. Like you've got. But that mask is actually, what's the name of the
Guy Fox. Which one?
That's a Guy Fawkes mask.
Oh, the one I have on.
Yeah, Notorious uses Guy Fawkes.
You know, I never knew the name. I always just called this the Zorro mask because I think in Zorro, that's when I first saw this mask.
Look up Guy Fawkes. They actually have Guy Fawkes Day. He actually was a member of an organization that was going to blow up the building of Parliament with Parliament in it.
All right, let me take this mask off.
In the UK. In the UK.
Crazy.
It's a great story. I mean, it's super interesting. They still have, to this day, they have Guy Fawkes Day. And that mask is also used in the movie V for Victory.
I said Zorro. That's where I saw it from. But I also got the Deadpool mask here. And to be honest, the issue I have is I can't see through these shits.
Yeah, I like the Guy Fawkes one. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, we're talking about a whole different thing. So also, DeMarcus Hicks and co-defendant Tyrone Jones, who remained a fugitive at the point of writing this, I don't know if that's still accurate, took at least some of the gold coins and bars and exchanged them for cash at a jewelry store. Some of that cash, wrapped in distinctive colored rubber bands, was then deposited into a safe deposit box in the name of Hicks' mother and sister, getting mommy involved in his dirty work. Law enforcement later searched the safe deposit box and seized $484,920 in cash that Hicks admitted was part of his fraud scheme. One thing I could say, at least he tried to stash some money away, at least. You know, maybe he was looking, you know, if things go south for his mother and sister, at least they got something to go to. But clearly they were able to track those gold purchases right back to what he did. So it wasn't that effective. All right, so so here you see some of the transactions that he did, wires in which he was purchasing gold. You have one on December 2019, 280 ounces of gold coins for $400,000. Some ridiculous things. And you got more over here. Some of the big ones, 12/17/2018, $144,000, 56,000. 155,000. They were going all the way in, and these were all transactions. And like you said, I don't know how the bank were allowing all these things to go through. And even with dealing with gold, I would imagine a lot of banks would find that as like a risky thing that they would want a new business to be dealing with, or a
Well,
new individual, not even a business.
I'm not even sure that the bank knows necessarily where those wires are going. But here's the thing about gold is that typically gold dealers charge between 1.5, around 1.5 to 2%. So if you're buying $100,000 worth of gold, you can buy bars. Usually bars have stamps on them though. They'll have like a serial number. Not that they're tracked. They're not tracked. But you can use that serial number to say, hey, you just take a picture in case it's stolen, but it's not tracked by the federal government. So, but you can buy bullion. Bullion doesn't even have a serial number. So you could say, I want $100,000 in bullion, and they'll mail it to you through Federal Express or through a courier. They'll give it to you. You sign for it. You can then turn around and go to another gold dealer and say, hey, by the way, I have this gold. I've been in my family for 10 or 15 years. My father gives us a couple pieces every single year. I'd like to sell it to you. Then they'll charge you 1.5 or 2% to buy that gold from you, and they'll cut you a check. So it's like for 3 to 4%, you've laundered your money. Like, so I get the gold makes sense. Selling it to a jewelry store. I guess he didn't know where. I mean, you would think he did know where gold bullion, where gold dealers were, because he's buying them from gold dealers.
Exactly.
But I guess maybe the jewelry store. Maybe the jewelry store was willing to just give him cash.
Exactly. Maybe that was impatience.
Yeah, because you can. There's nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, cut." That you could go and give it to him. Say, "Hey, cut me a check to my corporation." Like your mother or somebody opens a corporation for you, and you cut these checks to the corporation for the mom. Whatever. There's ways to do it. They don't know that, obviously. They were getting somebody to buy it for cash. Who knows what they were giving them on the dollar? But so I can see the gold, or any precious metals for that matter, even diamonds.
But as we will soon see, a common red flag was the accounts they were using to do these purchases were tied eventually right back to their actual identities with the phone numbers and the addresses. And you're going to see, let's keep it going. So their downfall, whoop, whoop. Guess who's calling the police? Downfall, as always. And if you watch this far,
girlfriend.
Oh, what? Oh, no. No, not the girl. Well, you keep calling it out, but what I was going to say is, if you watch this far, Matt already done called out everywhere that they went wrong. But
just the stupid mistake of the phone, right?
There's several, but for the sake of just tying this all together, it started getting investigated on July 2019. The FBI began investigating a mortgage loan fraud conspiracy targeting individuals in San Francisco Bay and the LA areas. The investigation started with a referral that they received from the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, and now involves the Secret Service and Los Angeles County's District Attorney. The evidence that they got from all the things that they found developed points to Hicks as the ringleader of this scheme. And as we mentioned, Hicks, 40, is an Oakland rapper and musician with an extensive criminal record dating back to 1995. First, this investigator obtained and reviewed applications and bank statements for the accounts that were open. The documents used to open the accounts, which victim 1 has confirmed she did not authorize, included the actual social security number, date of birth, and a mailing address in Richmond, California. Remember that. Gold purchases with proceeds of this and other frauds being perpetrated by Hicks and others were sent to this Richmond address. So there was a common link to this Richmond address. On February 2019, the mailing address of both the Bank of America account and victim 1's name was changed to an address in Vallejo, California. And if you remember earlier, that's where they had that trailer park home or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
Where multiple shipments of gold coins and bars were purchased. Proceeds from this fraud conspiracy have been shipped here and after, and then they gave the residents a name, the Gold Delivery Residence. So now they got it confirmed this is a target location. On December 2018, a $300,000 mortgage loan was taken out through North Coast Financial with victim one's properties in Oakland as collateral. In March 2019, a second loan was taken out for $250,000 using their second residence as collateral. On the corresponding loan application used for both loans, the applicant's name was listed as victim one with Hicks' phone number as the number that was on the application and that same Richmond address. So even though everything was in this victim's name, he put his phone number and his address on it. So, that's clearly a screw up.
Yeah.
And once the loan closed, the loan proceeds were wire transferred to these bank accounts that were opened. So you see all the connections. You got the two addresses that they commonly used on the bank accounts that they opened, and that they also had gold shipments sent to, and the phone numbers, everything. Based on the investigation, including a review of text messages obtained from a search warrant, they determined that 510 number belonged to Hicks, and we saw that earlier. Also, the Bank of America account, one of the Bank of America accounts that they opened, had that phone number associated with it, and they obtained subscriber records for the phone number from AT&T, and they saw that number is an active account associated with Hicks' mother. Once again, and it's so sad. I can imagine your mom don't even know I could imagine his mom wasn't even aware, and she just wanted to see the best for her son, and look what he's doing. Like, come on, y'all. Your moms love you so much. It's crazy.
You know what kills me is that, let's say, so he's using his sister's, brother-in-law's address or whatever. What cracks me up about that is that people are like, yeah. I would talk to these guys in prison. They go, yeah, I had the credit cards or whatever mailed to this address, but it wasn't my address. I'm like, well, whose address was it? Oh, it was my sister's, it was my sister's stepbrother or my sister's, whatever, baby's daddy, his sister. And it's like, okay, now wait a minute. Does that person know you? Yeah, they know me, but it's not me. So when the FBI shows up and knocks on their door and shows them a picture of you and says, do you know this man? Do you know what? Most of these guys think that because this guy is a plumber and has never been in trouble, they think he's going to say, no, man, I don't know who that is. The problem is that guy, that plumber, is a decent citizen. And a decent citizen, when the FBI knocks on the door and asks, do you know who this person is? They say, oh, wow, that's my sister's, or that's my kid's mother's brother. Yeah, I know him. That's Hicks. Like, because they don't think they think I'm helping law enforcement. I'm not doing anything wrong. And they must be looking for him for some reason. Like, the average citizen helps. So for you to think the average citizen is going to lie to law enforcement for you, you're crazy.
Yep.
You're better off using one of your co-defendants. You're better off. Right. You know what I'm saying?
And on the flip side of that, when you do have those, it's a couple of things. And this is what I always wonder when people use different individuals to cash out on. It puts that person in a position, especially in a lot of the cultures that these people, that these folks come from. It's like, is this person going to snitch now?
Right.
Because that's a common thing. It's like, oh, is this? But you're putting this person in a tight position. So now if they don't snitch, if the feds have a warrant on you and they're questioning you, 9 times out of 10, they already know the answer. Yes. They already know the answer. So now if you lie, that's going to be held against you. And I've seen it in many paperwork where they lied in an investigation or whatever it is. There's penalties that come with that. So now you're putting this person in a position to get involved in your nonsense, and they now have to, are they going to snitch? If you ask me, say what you want. If I had nothing to do with that, like Matt just said, I'm talking.
That's it.
If I was in on it, and this is what a lot of people who do fraud, I wish I could ask them. It's one thing to do fraud, make money, get away with it, have fun, do whatever you got to do. But when that shit comes crashing down, what are you going to do? Are you going to tell, or are you going to take the rap?
Listen, everybody says, I ain't saying nothing. But the truth is, when they tell you you're about to do 6 years, trust me, 6 or 10. First of all, they're not telling you 6. They're going to tell you 15 or 20.
They're
You're going to be scared to death. You're going to get scared to death, and you're going to say, yo, bro, look, I'll tell you the other guy, because, you know, I didn't know it was going to be all this, man. I barely made any money at all. I can't. And your lawyer is going, man, you better tell them you're about to do 15 years. The truth is you're probably only facing 6 or 7, but it doesn't matter. 6 or 7 is too much for 200,000 for making 200,000 or 300,000, because this guy Hicks, even though it ends up probably being a couple $1 million, it doesn't matter that it's a couple $1 million. He had to share that with a whole bunch of other people. I don't know if you noticed this or not, but they got the money that was in his mom's name. They got the money that was, trust me, all that money that you stick in your mom's name and those properties that you bought in your stepsister's name and your buddy's name. Listen, they're going to come and they're going to get all that. They're going to take it all. Well, no, it's in my mom's name. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. They'll take that shit from your mother in a heartbeat. They don't care about your mom. Like, you know, and you're not, first of all, as they're investigating, you're about to plead guilty. They're going to come to you and say, you got to sign over this. You got to sign over this. Oh, I ain't signing over that. Okay, well, guess what? You're not pleading guilty. You're getting 15 years. You're not getting 7. They start going, oh, man. Listen. And then those guys, 4 years, that's nothing. Oh, okay. Well, you must not have kids or a wife that loves you. Everybody's a gangster till they're sitting in that visitation room with their fucking wife and their 3 kids crying their eyes out going, how are we going to survive without you? And 2 years into their 4-year bid, which they didn't care about, your wife's banging somebody else. You got the divorce papers. She barely lets you talk to your kids. Your kids are calling somebody else daddy. Oh, hey, daddy, my new daddy just brought us to Disney World. My new daddy. Yeah, they're all gangsters till that happens. You know,
I think what you just shared there, I think a lot, because let's be real, a lot of people watch my channel because they think I'm teaching them fraud. I'm teaching you how to end up in jail, prison. Like, don't think I'm doing this and I'm a regular guy. I don't do none of this shit. But just like Matt said, you got to see what comes with it. And you might be a young person now, and you're probably not thinking about your future that way. But you always learn from other people's experiences, because you might not get as lucky. And if you could learn from where someone else screwed up, for you to alter the way you live your life, you got to take that. You got to always take that into consideration and appreciate when people share things like that, because you never know what you're going to go through. Never say never. But if you could think back and be like, oh, I heard Matt say, no, it ain't worth it. It ain't worth it.
Listen, man, I'm 50 years old. I got out at 50 years old, starting my life over at 50. I walked out of the halfway house at 50, starting my life over with nothing at 50. And listen, honestly, I'm about as sharp as you can get. And I wasn't sharp enough. You're going to screw up. I know the banking industry inside and out, real estate inside and out, and I still got grabbed multiple times. So if you think you're so sharp, do it. You know, like, you know, I mean, put in, as soon as you get there, put a cop out in, try and get a two-man cell, join the softball team. You're going to be here a while. Go ahead and sign up for vocational tech, teach a GED class. You know, you're going to be here. Like, settle in, start reading a book series that you like. You're going to do some time.
But all right, let's do a little conversation. But yeah, one of the victims that was associated with the phone number that he was using on these applications and loans, the mailing address associated with the number was an address of Hicks' mother once again, and the residence is on the same block as both the victims' residences. So pretty much his mom lived on the same block as one of the people that he did one of these fraudulent loans on. And when I was looking through the paperwork, I don't think I snipped this exact part, but I think it might have been this victim. They knew he was doing this, and he kind of tipped the FBI as to what was going on. So I don't know if that's probably what led to everything, but I think he was hip that this guy is doing all this fraud in the neighborhood.
I mean, Hicks's mom must be doing pretty well. She's living in the neighborhood where they're getting loans on houses for $750,000. Like, interesting. Well, no, these were small. There's probably the smaller ones, but even then, $300,000-$400,000. But it's California.
That too. And with the way property values shot up, someone could have easily owned a home in the 90s. You know.
Yeah.
And then now suddenly it's just worth all these hundreds of thousands, probably even million, depending where you at. But with that, another place where Hicks screwed up: text messages, emails, and IG, Instagram. They obtained account information, location data, and text message exchanges from Google Inc., directly from Google, for Hicks' phone number. On November 17, Hicks' phone sent a text message that said, "We good, I just need a granny." That's when they were looking to recruit Miss Suzanne Areola. He was like, "Everything is good. We just need somebody to send in there." Based on the timing of this conversation, I believe Hicks here is referring to the need for an older woman to impersonate victim one, who is an elderly woman. In fact, less than a month later, that's when they attached Areola, who is age 69 on that heroin, impersonated victim one to do the notary. Then on March 14th, 2019, there was the following exchange of text messages between Hicks' phone number and another phone number with a 213 area code.
Sheesh.
Yo, that's fucked up. I didn't get my chop off that 142 that was in that account. No matter what the situation, old girl signed for that shit. What the fuck is a block? Nah, I'm talking about all that Neiman Marcus and all that other shit I heard. It was blocked. I want my chop off that 142 that was in there. All that shopping Smurf was doing came out to 142. Bruh, I deal with my bro. So here, looks like one of the co-conspirators that they was dealing with was mad that they didn't get their cut. And just like Matt said, all the money's not going to the head of the scheme. I mean, everyone's getting a cut. And one thing I've learned, there's no honor amongst thieves. Sometimes you're dealing with a scammer and you don't even know that scammer is scamming you to do the scam for them. And then they can always say, "Oh, this didn't work, that didn't work." This and in reality, they made all this money and they just cutting you out. And at the end of the day, many times you being used as a mule or whatever it is. But based on the investigation, when they looked into this text, they know that Hicks' brother is Smurf. And they also know that someone using the funds from the Bank of America account in victim one's name made approximately $74,000 in purchases at different stores in San Francisco area, including Neiman Marcus, Macy's, Best Buy, Nordstrom, Sunglass Hut, Target, Barney's, Uggs, and Guitar Center. Ding, 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 ding.
The music lover.
Yeah. Well, he was a musician or a rapper.
Right.
Probably buying different things for his studio, trying to get lit. But it seems like he was a better fraudster than a rapper, because I don't know him for rap. But anyway, the purchases were made from approximately February 19th to February 28th, 2019. So within that, was like a week window, $74,000 in debit card or whatever. Yeah, I would imagine debit card purchases from all these stores. And homeboy is mad. He's like, "Did you get me some Gucci? Did you get me some Prada?" On February 2019 alone, $31,800 was withdrawn from victim one's fraudulently opened bank account with Bank of America in ATM transactions. They reviewed the ATM surveillance videos, because there's videos everywhere, and identified Hicks' brother as the individual withdrawing the money in at least one transaction. In a separate transaction, they were able to identify an individual they believe is Hicks' brother's girlfriend and roommate as individuals withdrawing the funds. So once again, cashing out, caught on camera. And I can imagine, and this is once again using somebody else to do your dirty work. You give them the PIN number. "Hey, just go do this for me. I'm gonna give you a cut." But this person doesn't know any better. They're just seeing, "Oh, I'm about to get $500."
They get that knock.
Mm-hmm.
"Is this you withdrawing all this money out of an ATM? Who's that with you? Who gave you the ATM card? Oh my God, that's my boyfriend's brother.
Yeah.
He's running some kind of a scam.
I didn't know. I swear, I'm innocent.
I didn't realize."
But before that, they were on Instagram doing the money phone, and just like, "Hey, made it." Just being silly. Anyways, they also linked his IP address that he used to do transactions on one of the fraudulent bank accounts. And they had his IP address and they tied it to the different things he was doing, the different logins. And I could tell you one thing, banks, from when you log into online banking, they know what device you use, the IP address, the location, they know all of that. So they got all that information and they were able to tie it with a service address in Antioch, California that they identified was being used as Hicks' residence. So all these IP addresses was associated with his residence. I know this was Hicks' residence from U.S. probation records and from physical surveillance of the address, during which they saw two vehicles registered to, once again, Hicks' mama. These vehicles were a 2007 Cadillac Escalade on 22s parked in the driveway and a 2012 Nissan Sentra. I also saw a 2005 Acura sedan parked on the driveway, registered to Hicks' girlfriend. In addition, this address was provided as Hicks in an anonymous tip to the FBI. So I think that's where I saw it, where that maybe someone in the community that got scammed was like, hey, it's him who's doing it.
Right.
And like you said, there's a bunch of this. You won't believe how many innocent law-abiding citizens there are out there. Ain't everybody on this not snitching stuff. Everybody wants to have a nice community where people's doing things the right way, and they will gladly work with law enforcement to get you shut down. But with that being said, all these IP addresses was tracked to him. They were doing surveillance. They saw it was his, and it gets worse. A lot of the gold that was being delivered was being sent to this gold delivery residence address in Vallejo, and they obtained 3 audio recordings of telephone calls made from Hicks' phone number, where he was claiming to be victim 1, attempting to conceal and change his voice. They listened to these calls and they believe that Hicks, person who was doing the impersonations, voice was Hicks because they recognized it from watching public videos on his Instagram. So they were all the way up in his social media, verified his voice against his Instagram. Jones was involved in a controlled delivery for gold that was sent to the residence in Vallejo. On January 28th, the FBI conducted a controlled delivery for the order that was paid on January 22nd for $24,000. However, the FBI asked them to send, instead of gold bars, to send silver bars that were worth $300. So that's a big difference. Mm-hmm. The shipment was sent through USPS, and the delivery was video and audio recorded. The surveillance was set up around the exterior of this gold residence in Vallejo, and before and after the package was delivered. Prior to the delivery, a car registered to Hicks' brother, being driven by a black male, was seen dropping off Jones at the gold delivery residence. Later that day, they observed the same vehicle arriving at target location 2, the residence of Hicks' brother. So all these connections they were making. They reviewed corresponding video and identified the person who received the packages as Jones, who was sitting outside of the residence when the delivery was made. Just like you said once again, Matt. Jones identified himself as David and said he lived at the residence and signed for it. No ID was requested, so he did not produce any identification. So controlled delivery, they were on to him, they knew what they were doing, and they confirmed it right there. They checked probation records for Jones and confirmed that he currently lived at target location 2. The controlled delivery of the silver bars and coins made by the U.S. Gold Bureau in January 2020 was observed being taken by Jones, once again at target location 2. Hicks' brother, who was captured on ATM surveillance withdrawing funds from the Bank of America account in the victim's name, also lives at target location 2. As does his girlfriend, who was also captured on ATM surveillance withdrawing funds from the same account. FBI agents assigned to the investigation observed vehicles 1 and 3 at target location 1 on multiple occasions. Most recently, on February 1st, 2020, they were told by Hicks' probation officer that vehicle 2, a 2015 Mercedes-Benz, was kept in the garage at location number 1. So all these connections between Kafani, Hicks, Jones, his sister's boyfriend, all these connections, and the FBI was investigating and surveillancing all of this, including the ATMs. This is the funny part, where they also confirmed one of these vehicles was associated with Hicks, specifically the Mercedes-Benz, because he was on a Facebook Live broadcast, and Hicks can be heard bragging about having a Mercedes 550 and the inside of what appears to be vehicle 2 visible. Additionally, a 2015 Mercedes-Benz S550 is registered to Hicks' mother and to a foundation the Take a Step Foundation that is tied to Hicks. So he was getting flashy on Instagram or Facebook, didn't even notice the feds is watching, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he definitely owns this car. Look at this guy."
I knew
What's
a
up?
guy one time that robbed a bank and actually robbed the bank. Actually still had the bands that were wrapped around the money with the stamp on it. And he laid them all around him and took pictures and posted it on Facebook.
What a genius.
And was bragging about how he was balling and making money and this and that. And he was in, and some friend of a friend, some friend of a friend turned him in. He had also left a prescription bottle with his name on it in the getaway car that they abandoned. Like, I mean, it's like you're just the dumbest person ever.
And like you said, eventually they start making stupid mistakes like that. And
you get cocky.
Yep. But with all that being said, on March 23rd, 2022, in a plea agreement with the federal prosecutors, the popular Bay Area rapper known as Kafani pleaded guilty this week to 4 federal offenses, including conspiracy. Records show Kafani, who goes by the name of Amir Rashad and Mark the Django Hicks, pleaded guilty Tuesday to conspiracy, aggravated identity theft, bank fraud, and wire fraud.
Can I mention some? Are we sure about popular? I mean, really? Like, you don't know who he is.
Maybe in the Bay Area,
popular, maybe in the local. Yeah, I guess just the Bay Area. Bay Area is still pretty big, but yeah.
Hey, but that's how we get to square one. 87 months. And if we look at the other individuals, Kafani got 87 months. Hicks, who is his brother, 48 months. Dion Costello, that was the individual that they used to recruit the drug addicts and other people to impersonate, 54 months. Suzanne Areola, that was the lady who kept going in to do the notary. She got 84 months.
That's crazy.
Age 72, 84 months.
She's going to die in prison. She's a drug addict. Well, she may live longer in prison.
Man, but I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely not a drug addict, but wouldn't they go through like some crazy withdrawals, or I don't know.
Well, keep in mind too, I don't know. Some of these people may have gotten sentence reductions after.
Yeah,
it
usually happens that way. I notice.
Yeah, so I can't believe he only got 87 months. He's been in federal prison before. He's got an extensive credit history, and he keeps having a gun.
Yeah,
like they don't like you to have a gun if you're doing these things. Do you know, like, the difference between walking into a bank with a gun? You're probably going to get 10 years. You walk into a bank with a note, you're probably going to get 2 or 3 years. There's a way bigger difference. And they don't like it. They don't care if your gun's in your closet in your house 15 miles away. They don't like that. Yeah. What was the final dollar amount?
When I looked into that, it said he had to pay restitution of like $1.9 million, which I found a little odd because they did so much.
No, but I think that's because they probably remember they recovered. What they recover, 300,000 or 400,000 in cash. Then they're going to sell all the vehicles. They're going to
and there was also another thing. Sorry to cut you off. They did also call out that a lot of the money was unaccounted for. There was a part when I read the paperwork, I should have included that. They did say a lot of the money was unaccounted for.
Right. Well, that's what the unaccounted for part is what he owes. That 1 point, he still owes that because they couldn't recoup it.
Okay.
So I think it probably sounds to me like it was more like 2.5 million. So, because think about it, it's just the numbers we came up with. There were about 3 or 4 transactions that were around 300,000. So let's say there's 300,000. That's 900,000. Plus, we know there were two mortgages taken out for at roughly 750,000. Well, that's 1.5. 1.5 plus 900,000. That's 2.4. There was a couple other ones that were like 140, 100. So let's say 2.5. They recovered some of that, but a chunk of it, obviously 1.5, they didn't recover. So he still owes a huge chunk of money that he didn't give up, which is odd. So that makes me feel like he may not have cooperated. You know, he may have just taken a plea. He may have cooperated. But to me, I feel like he would have gotten a lot more time if he didn't cooperate, only because of his record. So he may have gotten a 5K1, and that's why he was down around 84 months. That's why it seemed like the woman that signed, think about it, 70-something years old, she got the same amount of time almost.
Yep.
So he probably got, you know, more like 10 or 12 years, and then they just reduced it because he cooperated against everyone else.
You said it, not me.
I'm saying that seems more reasonable, because otherwise that sentence he got
makes you wonder, right? Especially with his record. And
yeah, especially it's really the record. If it weren't for the record, I'd say that's probably the sentence he under the federal guidelines he probably should have ended up with about 7 years, 6 or 7 years. But that's if you exclude his history with fraud. But once you've been hit with fraud a few times, they don't now they're going to hammer you. They're going to hammer you.
All right, y'all. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Once again, huge shout out to my boy Matt for taking the time out to go through this case with me. I know I definitely learned a lot of things, so I hope you did as well. As always, if you found value in the video, please remember to hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel to catch more of my content, especially if you want to see Matt back on this. Also, let me rewind. Please go over to my boy Matt's channel and show him some love. Subscribe if you ain't already. And let me know if you want to see Matt back on the channel again so we could go through some other cases. I know I had a lot of fun. I hope you did as well too. So please subscribe to the channel. And with that being said, peace.